Hi-yo! Yeah. Welcome everyone to a Mere Mortals meandering session. It is Kyron here.
Juan
on the other side. And a meandering session is where we, the Mere Mortals, dive deep into some particular topics that we're enjoying. It's not a really structured one. There is no set program for today. We are out in the park as we usually are, although not out in South Bank because it was super busy today. And
you say there was going to be a game?
There was a rugby game. Parking would have been a nightmare. It's already getting late, so no, I think we made the good choice to come here.
I think so.
I'm going to start off with my first and big one. And
big one?
It's a big one. It's a good old big one. And it's I've had a realization.
What is it?
And my realization was whilst I was doing a sneak peek into some of my long-term goals that are coming up for this
because
next
you've
year.
already got them planned.
I'm sort of like already. I'm thinking about.
You know them. You really kind of know them. You're just dialing them down.
Some of them I haven't really set, but there's a couple that I'm sneaking peeking. So here's a little sneak peek for you. And I was contemplating learning some coding, in particular. So I've never done any before. I can't say it's never particularly interested me, but that's not. It's more. I think that's kind of like a happenstance thing. Like handstands never particularly interest me, but now they do. And yeah, so there's definitely room for hobbies and things that I find cool to still make their way into my life. And I think this one could be. But as I was doing it, I was thinking like what should be the goal that I should be set for the next year? Should I try and complete a project of some sort? Should I finish a course? Should I say I want to be able to manually edit an RSS feed? So many options, so many different things. And I was contemplating all of this. I realized like, you know what? I actually don't like problem solving, which is a kind of funny thing for an engineer to be saying. But yeah. I'll dial it down a bit more, which was I don't like uncertain problems. And what I've noticed with troubleshooting, with especially these kind of software problems where you have to, you had one not too long ago where, what was it? Like your phone was, you weren't able to connect your phone to your TV, something like that. What was that?
Yes. It was me. The trouble was me connecting my very good.
Yep.
The phone through the Google Home to be able to stream Netflix or anything else from phone to TV.
Yep. And so it's one where there's no technical thing. It's you've all you've got to do is somehow get this thing to say yes, this should connect this way. And those sorts of problems, I hate them. I hate them with a passion. I feel it's because they're kind of uncertain. There's no guarantee you're going to get your payoff of this thing or fix, or maybe the solution is you have to go out and buy a whole new thing, or it can't just be solved with what you have on hand. I really hate that, and it's kind of, I've had this for every time that I've had to deal with switching a phone provider or something like that, or figuring out why this file won't export video. So for the Premiere Pro, for example, when it updates, and then I have to try and figure out, okay, why is it now
not working, not using the
why
styling?
Is it failing completely each time? And look, you could sort of say some of the things with some other things which I do like math problems, but I feel it's because there's a definite solution. If someone's given me a math problem in high school, it's not like there's not going to be an answer. There's a single defined answer, and you're going to get your payoff. And I feel that's the difference, which is that I just really dislike uncertain problems, or ones where I know there's no optimal solution. So in mining, when I was doing like lots of logistics and things like that, yes, I'm never going to solve it. It's always going to be trade-offs, and these trade-offs will be kind of optimized. These will be slightly down. You can get this coal, which is a higher quality, but you'll sacrifice maybe some efficiency for one of the other machines, and this will have implications down the line. That's okay. I can deal with that. It's that trying to solve a problem, you're not sure if it's going to be able to work, and I find those ones, it's impossible to gauge how much time. Is this going to be solved in an hour, or is it going to take 10 hours?
Yeah, okay.
I hate that shit. I hate it so much. So I'm going to have to definitely do a lot more thinking about what goal I want to set, because I don't want to set one where it's tough one. where I'm finding myself doing these kind of problems, which honestly, they just make me anxious and jittery. I just do not enjoy them. I find them super unpleasant.
Yeah, I think with coding as well, because I myself don't know how to code either. I can read code in certain languages. I can read JavaScript. I can read C#. I can read Python. Okay, and understand what's going on. I couldn't write it. I don't know all the variables and whatnot.
Gotcha.
But one of the things I do know about coding is that the movement between let's say a bad coder or a beginner coder to being good at coding, maybe understanding coding, is not in itself like the type of what the code does. So let's just take a really simple instance here and say HTML, and you're going, oh jeez, I had like a bug, like literally just crawling up my leg. Good. It was, say, a box, or you might be able to create that box in 100 lines, or maybe a really good coder might be able to more elegantly structure it so it only needs 2 lines, 3 lines. But you're right, it takes, or you could have it in all these different permutations. You could build it out of like corners. You could like build it in so many different ways. So I get what you're saying, where it's, you could have almost endless amounts of, okay, how exactly is it that I'm supposed to be doing? Someone might tell you one thing, there's no real answer to it. I do think that structuring a goal, especially for coding, to be like, okay, I want to learn how to build a web page, or I want to learn how to connect RSS. Yeah. Something about that strikes me as like you're not going to have a fun time.
I feel like the creation aspect, I actually wouldn't mind too much. The building of whether it's done this way and one of them's more elegant. I feel like that's okay. It would be if I'm building something, it was working before, and then suddenly it stops working. I fix what I think was meant to be fixed, and then it's now that wasn't actually it. It's those problems where nothing has changed on your part, and it's just totally on some hidden thing somewhere which has now changed, and it's those variables like, why has my car stopped working now?
Yeah, look, I will say, and if you do decide to go down the path of wanting to learn some coding, I would heed you on the side of trying to do like the simplest thing possible, because what you said earlier around where you don't know whether something's going to take an hour or 10 hours, the wording of it is debugging, obviously, in a lot of in the coding language, I guess you'd say it, but and you debug in any type of code that you write, and that process literally could be like, you might find out the issue in a minute, and you might find the issue in like 3 weeks. You have no idea. And obviously the more of a beginner you are, the more you'll just have absolutely no clue of what in the world is going on. So, the traditional thing where you will learn how to write a code is hello world on a page. That might be the easiest thing. And all the different types of languages, like scripts, will have different ways to do it. Sure, fine. But as soon as you start veering away from like the very, very like trodden path of creation, you all of a sudden are just in this wild country where it's like, okay, if I broke this, it's like, how do I not break it? And you'll have to try and find somebody who's done it somewhere else. And if they haven't, like, good luck. You're debugging that yourself as much as you can with what you know of it.
Yeah.
What do you think you want to get out of it?
I think probably it would be, actually, funnily enough, what I was just going to mention was automating the boring stuff. So there's a book, I'm pretty sure, called Automating the Boring Stuff, which is kind of, I believe it's kind of, coding 101 type thing, or you can... It's. I'm not sure it's specific to a language. It's more a mindset or a framework. I need to research it a bit more. But essentially, that would be it. It would be being able to perhaps create my own little programs for chapter art, for example. I spend a little bit of time messing around with that, and it is a manual process. Copy and paste from this thing, copy and paste it over to here.
Yeah, I would say to you that maybe something like that, but I know for a fact that you can create scripts to run on your computer, right, to do whatever. Yeah. Like, open this tab, open this, close this. Maybe you could make it a goal of like, automate 3 processes which are step-step type of deal. Maybe it could be like, run the script and this will automatically upload, select the right file when it's got the right naming structure, all of that, and it'll just post it. Like, so you're not even doing that. You just click it and you go away. Sure, that might be able to save you half an hour of time or whatever it may be. Yeah. So either that or just being able to understand how to use other people's ones, because I know other people have created similar things, but it's modified and you use it for yourself.
Yeah, modifying it slightly for myself, even just understanding the basics of how to set up a new server, how to I somehow installed Castopod. I still have no idea how I really managed to get that done, because there was a lot of help of other people.
Yeah.
That it would be nice where I could just be at a competent level, being okay. Maybe there's another self-hosting solution. Maybe there's once again, need to think about it more. But it was more, just realizing okay, I gotta be real careful with this one, because I don't want to set something.
You could, that could go like off the deep end quick. To be honest.
which is kind of me forcing myself to do things which I dislike in a way. It's kind of like reflecting.
I could
back
see that
on
causing frustration.
Yeah,
if done incorrectly.
It's kind of like the book goals. I've done it twice now, or I've kind of set myself a goal of reading X amount of books, or reading a certain type of book, philosophy books, for this last year. Which it's been okay, but it's kind of also been like, I don't particularly want to be reading this one right now, and I don't. There's times for forcing yourself to do things which you don't want to do. We'll talk about that in the procrastination one. Check out that episode from last week. But there's also other times where, I don't need to. I don't need to do this.
Yeah. All right. If there's anyone listening because probably people who are listening who are either probably better coders or are coders, because I'm imagining, especially in the Valley space, I reckon.
Yeah, basic. Please send in a boostergram or a message or contact, however. But maybe some basic things that you found useful, i.e. resources, and what is a kind of sustainable thing to set as a goal over a year. Right. I think that would be a nice... Yeah,
I'm wondering whether it's comparable to language learning. Is it like one of those things that you'd say...
I hope it is, because I like language learning.
No, but it's I'm going to do 15 hours a month, and in that time I'll code, or I'll do these things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know if it's that, or if it's a case of just start doing things and start Googling it and seeing okay, I need to do this. Okay. 'Cause I think often what I hear of the way that people learn to code is okay,
Google is their best friend.
It's here's this task to do. Go do it and figure it out along the way, and here's the steps and etc. By practice, as opposed to really reading it. Go read what it means to use this code or that code or this code or this variable or blah, blah, blah. It's no, just start, go by practice, go from there. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay. Have you, point of mine, I had it actually from a little while ago, I saw a documentary. Yes, a documentary. It was on ABC. Do you know about Jane and the chimpanzees? Do you know this particular?
In general, yeah.
Do you know this one?
I know who she is. Jane Goodall.
So, that's what I thought. This was sweet. It's not Jane Goodall, right? Because this story's crazy. It's batshit crazy. It's not Jane Goodall, but it's another lady called Jane, right? And it was about chimpanzees. Now, my dad was my dad recommended this.
Wait, are you saying her name was not...
No. So, this is a story about a lady called Jane, can't remember her last name, with chimpanzees, but it's not the Jane Goodall. It's not the famous Jane Goodall that people know about. Gotcha. Right? Because that's what I thought too. Because my dad was you've got to watch this documentary. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty bananas.
What's it called?
Part of the pun. Could you do a quick little Google while I find it? It's if you type in ABC Jane chimpanzees, you'll find it. And it's freely available, so if anyone wants to go watch it, obviously go watch it. I would recommend it, actually. It's pretty interesting. But I'll give you a little highlight of it. And look, if you are going to go watch it and you think I'm going to spoil it, because I'm about to spoil it for you folks, probably fast forward 2 minutes. But in all intents and purposes, I was okay, I'll sit down, I'll watch this. It's about an hour. And the first half, it's very casual, right? It's just what I expected. In essence, they rode, and I'm not going to get the years right, but back in, 70s, 80s, something around that time, they decided this couple, to get a chimpanzee, which was, just born, and take them into their family. In essence, taking them as, raising it as a normal human, just to see, the nurture versus nature debate that was happening around that time. And so they essentially raised it until it was a teenager, to the point they started finding okay, this chimpanzee seems to be doing chimpanzee stuff and it's starting to attack people, even though they were raising it as much as they could as a human, right? Now, really fast forward, as it came through, this person that they hired, named Jane, was hey, we need an assistant to help feed her, clean her sometimes. She's in a cage. That's what she needs to do. They got to a point, this family were oh, look, we can't keep her around. It's really bad. And there at the time, I don't know if it still exists. Oh no, it does still exist. There are chimpanzee rehabilitation centers in Africa where they'll try to get them back into the wild, right? Mm-hmm. So they took them over there. This particular chimpanzee, which was called Lucy, wasn't going well at all. Didn't want to eat like random food. Didn't want to like go into normal chimpanzee society. So this chick called Jane, who had basically like fallen in love in like a deep relationship, not of like sexual, but of I really care for this animal, for this human, almost like this entity, this person, for her. So she was like, I'm going to stay here to make sure that she can transcend into being part of the chimpanzees as large. So yeah, that's where we're about halfway through. Everything's seeming pretty normal, I guess, at this point, like rational. And the person, Jane, is actually in this documentary talking about all of the experience, telling about what happened. So she's like actually retelling the story, and they've got a bit of a flashback on what was happening. And all of a sudden it's like she's in Africa for 2 weeks. And then it's like she's in Africa for 6 weeks. And then they're like, okay, she's now there for a month. And then she delayed. She's like, okay, I've got it here on the calendar. I've got to go back home because I'm starting to run out of money. I'm basically only just like eating random things people are giving her. And there's something in that particular point as well, was the next phase of this chimpanzees being led into the wild was to put them into an island, basically an island just surrounded by water, so there wouldn't be too much predators, but there was some predators there, so they could start learning to eat food. What did she do? She decided to go over there with the chimpanzees, and I'll cut the story short. She stayed there for 6 years with these chimpanzees, basically just lived in a cage, and like she was talking about how at the very beginning they would sleep like right on top. It was like the chimpanzee losing a few other chimpanzees, and they would sleep on top of her cage and shit on her and piss all like night because they were so scared. And she just also got to a point where she was seeing like letters coming through from the outside world, like every month, being like, I hope you're okay, and she would write back. But she was suddenly become so disconnected to humanity, she just stopped altogether doing it. And so she was saying like roughly for 3 years she just lived with the chimpanzees and would just eat random food with them. And I'm imagining she also took a boat like back and forth between the river to like just go see others. Can't remember exactly why, but like 6 years she was like, okay. Oh, she got attacked by one of the male chimpanzees, who like they would have seen this lady as like the lead, I guess. And so the male chimpanzee was like, I'm gonna be a lead. So she got like attacked by this chimpanzee, and she realized, okay, I probably should leave. And so she reintroduced herself back into humanity. And she was in Bali. She had like a premonition of some kind. Anyways, Lucy got killed. The chimpanzee got killed, like strewn around parts everywhere. Who knows what? It's probably another chimpanzee's killed her or something like that, to that effect. And at that point, I'm like, man, this is wild. Like, what person like goes and like lives for 6 years with chimpanzees? Like, obviously, she really loved her, and she was talking about how at peace and how good it felt, and you know, she didn't miss humanity at all, anything like that. And then the rest of it, like, it just quickly goes, oh yes, and she returned back to the island, and she's lived like amongst the chimpanzees and is like the lead of the rehabilitation of chimpanzees since then, and still is today. So she like basically left when she was like 26 years old and never came back home. But I was like, man, that is some very
just crazy,
very far apart from rationality. But because she was in the documentary telling all this, and she seemed so rational. So she was like very. It seemed very normal to what she did. She was like, that's what I did. I feel it was fine. I did it because I really cared for her. I wanted to make sure. And I could see it in some parts. Like I could relate in some parts, being like, okay, if I really, really cared about something so much, I could imagine doing this. But then I did have to stop myself right at kind of the end. And I was like, you know, when people might reflect back and go, you know what? 200 years ago, I would have helped those black people out in the mines. Like I would have tried to free them or whatever. Nah, bullshit. I would not have. There's no way. Like many people wouldn't be doing that, because that's what most people weren't doing. You know, they were just going along with what normal society would be telling them to do. So yeah, I think even in that moment, I'd be like, nah, I'm not staying around for 6 years on a deserted island to look after this thing and then come back and do it forever. So I kind of deciphered it myself. I'm not that sort of person. I was going to ask you the question: do you think there could be any animal that you could fall so in love to make you absolutely up and take leave and never return again and just live away from humanity?
I'm not the biggest animal person anyway. So.
Does living away from humanity entice you? Is there something in that makes you go like, oh, that's
pretty
cool?
I think I've told you about my mini fantasy I've had before, where
in the caves.
I go out into an Uluru type rock, so big rock for those who Ayers Rock, for maybe the non-Australians, just like a gigantically fucking huge rock. And taking a bunch of dynamite out there and just like blowing caves and creating sculptures and then dying in there, and then people 100 years later, 200,000 years later being like, whoa, look at all this crazy, like that would be kind of cool, like one of those hidden mysteries. But no,
not so old. By the way, side thing, I did find in doing some booking for Tasmania that you can book a cave in New South Wales, I believe, and it is, I think it's like $1,400 a night, and it's literally a cave that they've just, I'm assuming it just existed in already this shape, and they've carved out a bit more of it and turned it into a hotel that you can stay in, like a room or something like that. So, and it does look pretty cool. Looks pretty expensive. So maybe there you go. You can live out your fantasy of living in a cave of some form, living in some rocks.
No, none of that appeals to me. Animals, I keep them at arm's length. I'm surprised she didn't get ripped to pieces
earlier
just getting attacked in general by chimpanzees. I don't know. This is my just like the Joe Rogan stuff I've heard about for years, where he's, he fucking loves the chimp. So just wow, those chimps, and they are, when you see them, they are bloody strong. Just biceps bulging.
Well, and the thing is, there was actually, speaking of Joe Rogan, I was listening to it just on the drive here, and he was talking about how, let's say, a Michael Jordan, he's really, really good, but you kind of have to have a little bit of a mental deficiency. Like, you have to have something a little bit mentally wrong with you to just want to win at all costs, like no matter what, and be like a dickhead to people, just be what others might be like, oh, that's a little bit too much. But it's like, but you have to sometimes do that, or be like that to be so good. They give me an example of Tiger Woods, and the fact that he was, his dad pushed him super hard when he was 1 year old and putting all the time, and to become really, really great. And of course, he became, some people would say, the greatest golfer there is, or maybe others would say at least in the top 10. Let's just say whatever. But that also came at the extreme cost of all these other deficiencies, issues now with his legs, his hips, all this sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, you kind of, to be able to get to those extremes, it's like, yes, you have to take, there's going to be all these other deficiencies that come to it. I guess what it also sparked in my mind, I was like, okay, this Jane person, it just strikes me as if she had put that level of tenacity to something else, I feel like she could have similarly achieved something incredible for the world, something insane. Maybe she was so tenacious, and who knows, an Amelia, Meinhardt?
What?
Amelia, what's the latest name? The one that flew the first time over the...
Amelia Earnhardt.
Something like that level. Be so tenacious that you just accomplish all these crazy things. But she just decided to put all her tenacity to look after...
She's got a doco about it. I actually couldn't find her name. All I found was Jane Goodall. It'll just be up here on your screen, people. Yeah. And so that'll be the easiest.
What I remember was Lucy. That's the name of the chimpanzee. So if you want to actually go watch that, it's quite nice. I gave away the whole complete story there. There's nothing really, there's nothing else that you will learn apart from how it is to live with a chimpanzee day to day.
Yeah,
on a deserted island.
You know what? Even the story itself actually doesn't interest me that much. It's I'm pretty sure I've heard versions of this where people do it with dogs and with other animals, which are kind of dangerous, but not dangerous enough to just completely mess them up. There was, though. People love animals, man, and some people love them probably a bit too much.
Maybe we're saying we're not huge animal lovers enough. Maybe we might get heaps of hate Instagrams coming in from here, from listeners being like, "I'll do that to my cat." If my cat was whatever, and I have to learn to go back to a wild cat. Yeah, I'll stay with my cat out in the wild for 10 years. Do that.
If you're doing that, you're probably not going to need much material possessions. So just convert it all to Bitcoin and send it out.
Just send it all over to us, and look, we'll look after it for you. And you let us know. In 10 years' time, we'll get you on the podcast. We can talk about your experience and see how it all went.
We'll film the documentary. Yeah.
The only actual little note that I had here was, this actually goes to, I guess, something that I'd forgotten about, and we used to do quite a lot, and we don't do as much, but just being precise with the words and even language. And so I heard it be said on a podcast, etymology, the etymology of X, a word. And I was like, ooh, I like the sound of etymology. That's quite cool. And in my mind, I kind of thought I knew what it meant, but not exactly what it meant. So in my mind, I was like, ooh, I could be saying things like, oh, we could find the etymology of humans. And I was using it as a concept, as an etymology. And you can look up the...
Well, and by that you meant what? What did you think? If you meant etymology of humans, what did you think that would mean?
I meant as let's find the root beginning of the concept of the idea,
Okay, yeah.
something to that regard. But it's in specifically the word. It's the word, the actual like human, where that came from, I guess. So the etymology of the actual word itself. So I was like, oh, okay, I would have gotten that wrong. That would have been like the wrong terminology of that particular word. And I guess I just got to the realization of being like, oh, yeah, okay, there's probably other users of words or language that I've probably gotten sloppy with. That I'm using it, or I'm especially reading it, because in Obstacles Away by Ryan Holiday, look, this motherfucker puts so much just extra words just for extra words' sake. You know, where you put like something that you've never heard before in your life, you're like, dude, why even use this? I'm sure you can use it like any other different way, but he just does. And I'm not going actively to find out exactly what it means. I'm just reading it and go, okay, I kind of know what he is saying here. Like, I get the concept of the sentence. I'm assuming this means this. And I won't go and like actually check it out, where I probably should, because I'll go and like re-say that word and it'll be like, oh, actually, no, that doesn't mean that. It actually means this specifically.
Yeah, I'd only do that if it appears 2 or 3 times. I'm also reading a book, Sobre Héroes y Tumbas by Ernesto Sabato. And
Sombrero y tumbas?
Sobre. Yeah, so about heroes and tombs, basically, or graves. I'm not exactly sure how the that word gets translated. You get the rough picture. And it's Argentinian Spanish, and they I mean, every country has its slang, and it just depends on how much the author particularly wants to use that slang. But I mean, Argentinian slang's the only one I've heard where they've got a name for Argentinian slang, which is lunfardo.
Damn.
So I think they've got, their slang level might be even at a better game than... actually, no, sorry, I believe chingado as well as maybe the sort of like Mexican slang. So, but I never heard a word for Colombian slang. All I'd say is just like, it's Colombian slang. So... there's a fair few words that he's throwing around there, which I just go... I even trying to research them is hard, because you have to know exactly where to be looking on Google or some of these dictionaries, because it's very, very specific.
Very specific, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just depends if you want to be a bit more well-read, if you want to...
But I think it's not so much well-read as opposed to...
I think you need to expand your Spanish...
it is, yeah.
I'll bring that up in a minute. I'll bring that. Yeah.
I think it's more just getting the... If I'm going to reuse... You're right. Like, I'm not going to be reusing every single one of those words that I'm learning in Ohio holidays. Because, well, 1, I'm not learning them. Like, that's flat out, I'm not learning them. But 2, there's some of them that I wish I could recall one of them, because I was just like, dude, why even use this word? You could use... It's almost like...
It's like epistemology.
It's like when you bring back an 1800s word, and it's like... No, like, why even say that? So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, there's a whole bunch of words which I've heard Sam Harris say, for example, and I kind of know it, but if I actually wanted to use epistemology, it would be I'd get it kind of right, but not
exactly right.
Not exactly, yeah. Yeah, no, what I wanted to bring up was a celebration. Juan is now 30. He's joined the Awesome 30 Club, such as, distinguished people such as myself.
And all 30-year-olds.
and every other 30-year-old and every other person who will be 30. But, we went to a kind of like an event last night, which you/your family put on. Yep. And we were just, there was just this funny moment when we were arguing about whether you or your sister had better Spanish.
Quality versus quantity was a conversation.
Yeah. And your mum did the right thing and hedged.
She hedged. She did. Yeah,
hedged. Your dad.
My dad took sides.
He
said.
Did you hear what he said about you? After?
Yeah, he said the side of like, oh, Juan's got more quantity, but my sister's got more quality.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, but then he said your sister's is better as well. Yeah, so that was just not in front of me.
Now. Okay. There you go. So dad took a huge point.
Your dad took a side. And so we were just saying how your Spanish is lacking in vocabulary for some things. Yeah, but
there's even words of Spanish that I'm learning now with Jadler going through and learning Spanish. I'm like, the hell does this mean? I'm like, what the hell? But even like some grammatical structuring where I'm like, oh, I would say it this way. And then Duolingo's like, no, it's said this way.
Yeah,
but
no.
sometimes I'm like, no, Duolingo is wrong here. This is wrong. Like the way Duolingo teaches below. Short. It'll be like bajo.
Yeah.
Like BAJ. I'm like, dude, no one uses bajo. Like that is not. You say
they use?
corto. You'd say like corto is short. Like corto.
Or just add ito.
Yeah, you gotta go chiquito, whatever, whichever way. Like I'm like, bajo is not like the most commonly like how is it being like taught. But again, obviously they're probably getting it from somewhere.
I wouldn't be too harsh on Duolingo because they have to. They're doing it for everyone. It's for every Spanish speaker, so it's not. It's not just Colombian.
Get better. Get some AIs going and teach them more specifically to like what you need. I'm sure they could do that.
For example, if someone's learning English, they might be tempted to put in "I reckon" instead of "I think." But I'm pretty sure Duolingo would be going, no, that's not acceptable.
I think.
Do
they let you learn like slang-ish terms? Duolingo? Well, not that I've come across it or heard about anyone do it. If you learn Australian, like, and you learn just Australian and then some Australian slangs. I actually feel like that would be quite useful. There would be some uses to that.
Yeah, but it's that's not what their course is for. If you want that, join. I literally just had the conversation with Pete from Aussie English. It'll probably be out. I'm hoping the day after this one's released. Another one with him. We didn't actually even talk about any language stuff.
As much.
He's gotten into plant collecting at the moment. So
plant collecting.
Yeah, actually, here's a kind of funny thing. So in that conversation, we were talking about hobbies and the dreaded word monetization, which I dislike that word. But in any case, and he was saying how when he starts something up, he is basically almost instantly looking for a way for his return or his investment of time or capital to be able to bring that back into himself. So, for example, he got a PhD in, I'm going to say like marine biology or something like that. It was around that sort of area. He used to just do a lot of stuff with turtles and things like that.
Cool.
But found that he didn't actually enjoy it, created this podcast called Aussie English, and he's managed to make a fairly successful podcast, pays for him and his family's lifestyle, beautiful. He's gotten into rare plants collecting, so this is getting back to his sort of biology side a little bit more.
Yeah.
Rare houseplants, I should say. I should qualify that with that. But he was saying he laid out, I think he put in like 10 grand into houseplants.
Yep. That just seems so like unreal to me. But
with the idea and with I believe he's putting into practice of then being able to take snippings of this and then you send it to other people and they will pay you for that, and they'll pay hundreds, even thousands for a snipping or
so they can also grow their rare.
So they can also grow their rare ugly plant. He was noticing actually that. Sort of similar to how money works, the rare plant industry is similar, where some of the highest
like ugly as hell,
ugly as shit, and it's just because
about the rarity,
the rarity, and they're very hard to actually maintain and grow. But I was contrasting that with me doing handstands, which is there's no purpose, there's no final goal for it. I'm not doing it to join Cirque du Soleil. I'm not doing it to teach people. I'm not doing it to. There's zero plan in my mind of this ever making me a single dime.
Yep.
And he was saying, man, I do not understand that. So what about for you? If you were picking up a new hobby, like coding, for example, would it be in your mind to be able to create money from that? Is that something that's forefront? Or
I don't think so.
Does it even come later? For me, I was like, I don't even know if it might come eventually for me, but I was just explaining more how my general philosophy was kind of build something first and then take opportunities from it later, rather than be building and trying to take opportunities at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard question. I think the complexity that comes with that is that it does depend on where you are in some stages with life. Like, let's just say you were, in that example, Pete was really wanting to get into getting rare plants for the home, but also was struggling to make ends meet. But you really want to do that. okay, there might have to be like some real view into like, okay, if I'm going to do this, is this going to actually get a return, or am I just going to be wasting my money here?
So in his case, this isn't. It's
exactly.
It's a voluntary hobby.
But I'm saying like if it was like, if it's that sort of space, then maybe you'd be like, okay, I really have to think about the money perspective. Let's just say for some whatever reason, say for you handstands, if whatever go down the path and say, oh, okay, now like I've got to make ends meet, and I need money. And I'm putting 4 hours a day into handstands, but now I'm going to put 4 hours into working. Okay, you might have to be like, okay, I need to do 2 hours of working and 2 hours of hand, whatever, something like that, right? So I think it does depend, because I think for me personally, when I was younger, I do remember having a thought of maybe a lot of things. I'd be like, ooh, how could I turn this into like a business idea or something that could leverage it into more? Now, not specifically money, but it could have been more followers. It could be more reactions. It could be more network, whatever. Insert whatever. But now, I guess I'm in a position where I don't need any of that. In the position of like, okay, I've got a happy lifestyle. I'm totally fine with that sort of thing. So any extra hobbies that I'm adding, like learning French, like, I guess I could still say, like my training today, there's no end goal on the side. And it's not like I'm chasing it so that I'm one day going to be good enough French that I can, get money on it or teach people. Like, I'm like, nah, I just want to do it because I'm finding it engaging. It's sort of like picking up something old that I was doing a long time back. Am I going to do it forever? Probably not, but it's fun for the now, and it's cool, and I'm not expecting anything from it. So I think that's more the mindset now. But again, if I was in a position where my time was coming to it, like it's pretty critical, and even though it's a voluntary hobby, my thought patterns might change, where I would have to go, okay, no, this has to be making a return for me if I'm down to like paycheck to paycheck, and maybe I could be spending that time, I don't know, doing online surveys to make money or some crazy stuff like that. Yeah, so it would depend. But I think for now, I'd say, yeah, I could totally get behind doing hobbies where there's no return on investment. It's just purely for the like enjoyment. That's like enough of like a return on investment.
Yeah. There you go.
Cool. Anything else
you got? No, I think that'll end us for today. Sun setting. The chilliness is coming a little bit at the moment as well. So
yeah, you were saying it was going to get like it was starting to feel chilly, and it was a little bit.
I'm feeling cold right now.
I was like, no, it was good. Beanie, man. That's all I need. Just beanie. Got shorts on. Got a shirt on.
Got a red beanie on.
For those who are not actually watching, so I'm literally wearing a red beanie. I've glasses. I've got just a t-shirt.
If you've got a decent podcast app, you will see a picture of what Juan's wearing and what I'm wearing on your screen at the moment.
You'll be able to see it and be like, oh, okay, gotcha. This is different. There's a difference between me and Karen. So, I don't know what temperature it is right now. Probably like 17 degrees. But
I can look it up.
I think I'd probably be wearing what you'd be wearing if it was 10 degrees out, 11 degrees out. That'd probably be my sort of outfit of choice.
Wait. Oh, so I'm wearing what you would be...
Yes. Yeah. If it was like 10, 11 degrees.
Yeah, pretty much bang on. It says 19, 17, 16, so around that.
Somewhere around that. We'll leave it at that.
So a couple of recommendations from here from me. We have been talking a lot about the value for value and in particular the boostergramming, but there's a couple of things we've been neglecting recently, Juan. So the value for value is time, talent, and treasure. We've been talking about the treasure a fair bit, but some... time and some talent stuff that people could do, which would be very helpful, is sharing the podcast. It would be nice to be able to share this with more people, get more people joining the live chat on Sunday evenings, which we do every Sunday. There's just being able to sort of I'm focusing a bit more on expanding the podcast out to more people at the moment. So, other recommendations, if you enjoy video, we've got video up on YouTube, like little shorts sections as well. Yeah. So there's plenty of places to consume for us, and however you want to share any of them, sharing a clip, telling a friend, all of those sorts of things.
Sharing is caring.
That value portion would be very much appreciated. And we hope you've enjoyed the value you got from this podcast, learning about bloody chimps and crazy people.
Go check out. Go watch it. I think I'd recommend people to watch it. Kind of like fast forward past the initial stages. Like you'll see it and just see like how she lived just out in like the wilderness basically for 6 years. It just seems like just so beyond reason to me. But to see another human, like an actual human, do that, I was like, wow, okay, this seems nuts to me, but obviously there's a level of dedication that I just will never have in that regard. Yeah,
for sure. And in terms of chapter images, a lot of times we will forget names of particular things. when I'm re-editing that in the post-production
we
for
have
this,
the time to make it a little bit higher quality for
I
you.
sometimes add a note. I'll definitely have her name appearing somewhere there, and probably the Lucy documentary so you can see it. So if you've got a decent podcasting app which supports chapters, so some of these would be things like Podverse, like Curiocaster, like Fountain. Actually, quite a lot of them do Podcast Addict as well. I'd need to actually go through all of them. There's Breeze. All of these sorts of ones support those, so yeah, definitely worth checking that out. And if you're watching the video, they're obviously appearing on your screen as well. So
correct, and even better from all you're saying, because just quickly had a little look just to be like, okay, exactly what's the name? And Jane was the name of the wife who originally raised it. I don't think it's the actual.
You've been saying her name is Jane.
I know, but something's like getting to me right now, being like, I think maybe they're both called Jane. Because I'm like, dude, I remember it being like Jane, but oh man, we'll have to. Anyway, it's called Lucy the Human Chimp. That's what it's called.
Okay, good.
Lucy the Human
There
Chimp.
you
So, the story was right. All names and years probably incorrect.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I wasn't remembering any of that stuff.
Everything apart from
Everything you heard was everything you heard was lie, but the story about Lucy.
Maybe not a lie, just very misguided.
Her name wasn't Lucy. It was actually like, no, I'm kidding. Completely wrong. Immortal Lights, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much. Hope you are well wherever you are in the world. One out.
Karen out.
Good.